read the top part.
Good morning. May I have everyone's attention, please? If you have not signed in, please do so at this time. Please use this opportunity to silence all cell phones. Thank you.
Good morning. This meeting of the Louisiana Tax Commission is hereby called to order. This meeting is being held at the offices of the Louisiana Tax Commission at 1051 North 3rd Street, Suite 225, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The date is Wednesday, February 16, 2022, and the time is 10 a.m. Please call the roll.
Chairman Shahardy.
Here.
Commissioner Potier. Here. Commissioner Jeffers.
Here.
Commissioner Bircher. Commissioner Wood. 5 present and a quorum.
Thank you. All right, there being no old business to take up at this time, I will accept a motion for the approval of the February 2nd, 2022 minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move that the minutes of the February 2nd, 2022 be approved.
We have a motion for the approval of the minutes of February 2nd, 2022. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. I'll now accept the motion for the approval of the February 9th, 2022 minutes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move to approve the minutes on February 9th, 2022 meeting.
We have a motion for the approval of the February 9th, 2022 minutes by Commissioner Jeffers. Do we have any objection to the motion? There being no objection, the motion stands adopted. We'll now consider change orders.
Good morning. Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 1,286 change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 1,267. We'll place 18 in pending status and deny 1 in Calcasieu Parish for not providing an occupancy date when applying a homestead exemption. Staff requests approval of these change orders.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would move to accept the staff recommendation to approve 1,267 change orders, place 18 in pending status, and deny 1 for the reason given.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wood for approval of change orders. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now consider prior pending change orders.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 9 prior pending change orders. Staff has reviewed those change orders and requests to approve 9. Staff requests approval of the prior pending change orders.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we accept staff recommendations and approve the 9 prior pending change orders as stated.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bircher to approve 9 prior pending change orders. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now consider tax sale cancellations.
Shandrika Banks on behalf of the Louisiana Tax Commission. Today we have a total of 36 tax sale cancellations in the following parishes. We have 32 in Caddo Parish due to trailer being removed, 2 in East Baton Rouge Parish due to being sold in error, 1 in LaSalle Parish due to being duly assessed, and 1 in Lafayette Parish due to being duly assessed. Staff is requesting to approve 36 tax sale cancellations.
A motion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I move approval of 36 tax sale cancellations based on staff's recommendations. 32 in Caddo Parish, 2 in East Baton Rouge Parish, 1 in LaSalle Parish, and 1 in Lafayette Parish.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jeffers for approval of tax sale cancellations as reported by staff. Do we have any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. All right, the next item on the agenda is has been continued. It's a consideration of a refund of taxes paid in error. That matter has been continued into without date, so we'll consider that at a different time. All right, at this time, I'll ask everybody who is planning on testifying before the commission to stand up at your chair so that you can be sworn in as a witness. Right.
Yeah, Dalton, I do.
Alicia Labatt, I do.
George Wallace, I do. Reed. Reed Hugon, I do. Sandy?
Sandy Kennedy, I do.
Paul? Paul Grant, I do. And Cook.
I think they turned, they went dark until needed. Okay. It is the tax commission's policy to accept all documents into the record that were timely pre-filed in accordance with the commission's rules and regulations. This will be done at the conclusion of all hearings on today's docket. Accordingly, there is no need to formally offer or introduce the exhibits into the record during your appeal hearing. However, if you intend to object to the submission of any of the opposing parties' exhibits, you must notify the commission at the start of your appeal hearing. As a reminder, this is an administrative hearing, and as such, the rules of evidence are relaxed. The commission is inclined to review and consider all evidence submitted and to accept such evidence into the record. All right, first appeal we'll take up this morning is item N on the docket, the appeal of Michael D. Smith versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 21-22176-015. Just give us one moment. All right, Mr. Smith, is that you? Okay, come on up to the microphone and tell us about your appeal.
So I'm Michael Smith. I purchased 1025 State Street, New Orleans in 2015 for $1,062,500. It was a renovation, a flip that failed and it went into bankruptcy unknown to us. The realtor that helped prepare some of the exhibits is the same realtor that was with us for the purchase of the house. After the purchase, there were no significant changes. The purchase price included plumbing fixtures, etc. that just needed to be installed. They were sitting in a room. Sorry.
That's all right.
Could you hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you.
The other question was about the very good condition, and I submitted evidence of some problems with the renovation, including a lawsuit that we had to do against the contractor. In 2020, there was an increase of 52%. We appealed to the Board of Review, received a modest reduction. We appealed again in 2021 with no change. I've also included comparables from our realtor at that time that we got the notice of the increase, and also a review of the adjacent neighbors on our street, showing their relative amounts of increase. Ours was significantly higher. And I also included our insurance paperwork just to show that we were insuring for the amounts that we thought the home was worth.
Who did you submit all that documentation to? The Board of Review?
I submitted it originally to the Board of Review, but I emailed it.
Because we don't have all of that.
I think I emailed it to the 2 emails that were on the notification. I'd have to look.
All right, what value are you asking for?
I originally asked for the value of that we purchased for $1,062,500.
$1,062,500. And you bought it, you said in 2015?
Yeah.
Well, I do agree that, we'll talk to our appraiser when that time comes. I do think that the very good condition that's listed on the appraisal might be a little aggressive. I think probably a condition of average is probably better based on what I see that we do have. So, but we'll get into that with our appraiser, when that time comes. Do we have any questions, right now? All right, why don't you have a seat and let's hear from the assessor's office. Mr. Alvarez?
Sorry, Commissioners, I was just conferring with,
No
Crosby.
problem.
The taxpayer was asking for $1,062,000,
500, yes.
500. He's currently at $1,027,000.
Right.
So he currently lost his requested value. Our office also received no notification of documentation from the taxpayer, so I'm not really, won't be able to dispute any of his evidence. But our appraisal, and I believe the tax commission's appraisal is actually higher than that. We're asking the commission to just uphold the current value, which is less than what the taxpayer is asking for in the 2015 purchase price.
And the
Okay.
current value is also the, board review value.
Yes, sir.
Hold on one moment. Okay, Mr. Smith, if you can come back to the microphone real quick. All right, what the assessor's office is saying is that they would accept the value that's out there now, which is $1,027,000, which is what the Board of Review ruled on. That's less than what you requested. You requested $1,062,500. So are you satisfied with the $1,027,000?
Yeah, unless I'm misunderstanding something on their website, it had my total value at 1.3 million because it led to problems.
No, the 1.3 million is our staff appraisal that came in higher than all of these numbers. But what the assessor's office is saying is that they would accept, if you're willing to accept their value that's out there, that's less than what you requested. So your new value your value then would be $1,027,000, which is about 35,000 less than what you're requesting.
Yeah, so I mean, I would be agreeable to that because that was but the reason I brought that up is that was an IDA reduction.
You're currently at less than what you
Okay. Okay. But, yeah, will that expire next year?
Well, you've got to check your value every year just to make sure, okay? But I mean, next year's next year. We're not here, we can't deal with next year. So what you can do, if you're going to accept the $1,027,000 that the assessor's office has and the Board of Review has, you know, you can just withdraw the appeal, and that's you'll have the value that the assessor's office has given you.
Yeah, I mean, my main concern was that was a reduction that was going to expire just.
Well, it may, I don't know what the thinking behind the assessor's value is. And that's an issue, maybe an issue for next year.
Mhm.
What I do know is you're asking for $1,062,500. The assessor's willing to give you $1,027,000.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so I would suggest, you know, do what you want.
No,
I would suggest that you just take the $1,027,000 and call it a victory in a day.
Yeah, I would withdraw it then.
Okay, withdraw it. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. And Mr. Alvarez, so the value will be what's out there now, which is $1,027,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay, for the current tax year.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So the records will reflect that it was withdrawn.
It's been withdrawn, yes. Just give us a moment before you start. All right, go ahead. And just state your name for the record.
Ryan Gonski with 2726 Coliseum Street. This is a residential property that has 4 rental units. Before I discuss the current exhibits and the current valuation, just a quick history. This is not our first time coming in front of the LTC regarding this property. Over the years, roughly about every 3 to 5 years, the assessor's office comes in with a valuation that they have no basis behind. The last time was in 2016, we were in front of this commission and got the ruling of the total valuation of $620,000. That valuation has stood since then. 2021, they came in and raised it to $1.5 million with no basis, as I mentioned. We went through the board of review process at the time, which agreed with our $620,000 valuation. The assessor's office appealed that, and then a week before we were supposed to meet here last October, they withdrew their appeal to the 2021 remaining $620,000. They rolled that $1.5 million over to our 2022 valuation, and here we are. So we went to the board of review initially. Quite honestly, that call lasted 2 minutes. I don't think we had our chance to go through our facts. It was very abrupt. They took Mr. Bolton's appraisal into account, and that agent settled on and sent back to me $850,000. So what we're dealing with right now is our past 5 years and back to 20 years of around $600,000 versus what we are now dealing with of the board of review ruling at $850,000 and Mr. Bolton's appraisal of $835,000. So moving to the exhibits that I have presented you all with.
Okay, again, we don't have any exhibits. Where did you file the exhibits?
I filed it with, I have the certified mail, and I
With
have,
who? With whom?
Tanasha, is that?
Tanisha?
Tanisha?
Go look.
I can pull the email. I also can, if you can find that email to prove it, I can give you a copy to, if you want.
Well,
to.
we gotta see if we have it.
Okay.
What value are you asking for? Let me,
I'm saying that the 620 that has stood due to our current financial results that I have in this exhibit, there has been no changes made. In this scenario, due to it being a rental property, the valuation should primarily be focused on the income approach. And the financial information that runs back 3 years, that takes the history and the trends of what we are actually realizing on this property, that the valuation comes below that, but I'm going here to say that $620,000 that this commission has agreed to and that nothing has changed financially. The condition of this building that Mr. Bolton had come out and witnessed himself and ruled on is an average condition. So I believe that the $620,000 is a fair valuation for this property, even though the income approach might say that it could be less.
So you think the board of review took the actual appraisal that was done last year?
They had it in their hand, and when we went back and forth as we were going, the board, and this happened on another one of my properties, the board of review agent said, has there been an appraisal? What's that? And they just then took that into consideration, and that's where, I mean, do I know that for sure? No, but for them to come to 850 when they had that appraisal, and for us to literally have 2 minutes on the call, we couldn't even get into our exhibits. That's where I'm going off.
You know, I don't think, you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think the tax commission furnishes the appraisal to the board of review. But perhaps the assessor's office had it from last year. Russell, would y'all furnish that information?
Please go to the microphone.
We talked to them because they asked that. We're not gonna. So when they asked us on this and another property, we said yes, we have it in hand.
Oh,
Here's
so yeah,
the-
so y'all furnished it out upon
when they asked, when the board of review and the assessor's office had as well. So I didn't think that that was right to withhold that information.
All right, Chandrika's looking for that information, to see if we have it. Just in order to save time, let's hear from the assessor's office, and then you can come back to the microphone afterwards. And have a seat. Thank you.
So the assessor's office did not receive any documentation or exhibits from the taxpayer. Taking a look at what we have on file, the assessor's office is in agreement with the tax commission staff appraisal value. We don't feel that a value from 2016 should be upheld for 2022 because of two different appraisal cycles.
So the assessor's office agrees with the staff appraisal of $835,000?
Yes, sir, and I conveyed that to the taxpayer earlier, which is slightly less than the board review's value of the 850.
Okay. All right. I guess doing this a little bit out of order, don't normally do, but I'm trying to save some time. Mr. Bolton, would you just go ahead and tell us about your appraisal?
I'm inspecting the property, I'm there for the property, the assessors were put to different than mine. Our appraised property is $835,000, $163,200 in land value, which is less than calculated. His reported monthly income, their reported monthly income, and the market that
So you use the property owner's actual income? Is that? Yeah, I'm looking at it. So the subject's monthly rent was $5,700 a month, is that correct? That's what was reported to you, okay. You have to give us a moment. No, we apparently they've found what you filed. We just didn't have. Okay, yeah, I believe we've got it, so. All right, why don't you come on back to the microphone? Our appraiser did an income and a market approach.
Correct.
An income approach of 826,500 for income, and a market approach for 840,000, determined a value of 835,000, which is kind of a value in between. And based it upon, if I'm understanding this correct, that you reported to him a monthly income of $5,700 a month.
When he was out here in 2021, it fluctuates based on vacancies.
Well,
but
I understand,
that's
but, and that's how he came up with the income approach, is based on
correct.
on that. So, and that was a value of 826,500. Using a value from a previous valuation cycle is not a basis that we can use
I'm not expecting
for,
that.
and the appraisal that our staff appraiser did of 835,000, although I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt and use the income approach, which was 826,500. I mean, I would not have any objection to using that as the value. But I need to, coming off of that number.
And I understand, and so when I reviewed Mr. Bolton's calculation, there's multiple income approaches. He used the gross rent multiplier.
Right.
What I'm saying in my exhibit is that the gross rent multiplier is an approach that works and it's effective, but when you have full financial information like I have presented here,
Did you present that to Mr. Bolton, all that information?
to Mr. Bolton when he
To
walked
our
through his
appraiser.
walkthrough? No, no, sir.
Okay.
I put it in these exhibits to show that when I use the income capitalization approach, which takes into account net operating income, because we have all of these facts in the history, we're barely, this property is barely breaking even. I adjusted for depreciation. So having these actual results, to use 3 subject project properties in your comps to project out their gross rent multiplier on our property, when we know that we are having break-even issues each year, that I think that the income capitalization approach is more suitable and the best approach in this scenario. And so that's what my calculation goes through. It takes and I used a monthly rent of $6,300 in my calculation and to show out what we potentially could get, and then factored in a 25% vacancy loss. And the difference, one of the key differences between the gross rent multiplier and the income capitalization is, one, you don't take into account operating expenses on the GRM, and you don't take into account vacancies. And
Well, it does, it's based off of sales prices of comparable properties.
And when we look at our property and what we are actually, the results that we have, I felt that the capitalization approach, using a very conservative 6% cap rate, I've researched the market. Real estate, it's usually somewhere that they'll tell you 8 to 10%, 7 to 9. Going off a 6% cap rate, when using our actual operating expenses that account for 84% of our top line, that we get to $151,000 for building improvements. So taking that 151 for the building improvements, the uncontested land of 163 comes out to be 314,000. And so what I'm asking, if we take that if we just replace his income approach with the capitalization approach, because it's specific to this location and the actual results, we'll take 314,000 and do the same weighted average he used with the 840,000 for the market approach. If we're gonna include both, and when you take 840 and the 314 in average, you get 580,000, and that is why the 620 is still. I know we're not leaning on a 2016 ruling here, but it is still reasonable based on our current vacancies, the market, the average condition. We can't get top market rent for these 4 units, and that is why. Throw out the let's just use 26, but the point is the 620 is still appropriate for what this property is generating today. And that's I'm taking his approach, putting a more appropriate income approach calculation into his formula of combining the market approach and the income approach, and coming out to 580, and then saying that the 620 is reasonable.
Okay, in your expenses, you list property taxes, which we do not do. We include that in the cap rate because you're trying to prove property taxes.
Okay, so if
So,
I'll certainly adjust for
You
that.
know, that needs to be adjusted, and then you're also taking out depreciation, which again,
I took depreciation.
yeah, which is something that we would not,
And we don't have any debt service, so that you don't have to factor that in. So even if, and that's what, looking at some of the, like the calculations I was just playing around with just to see, based on this, if I didn't even factor in vacancy losses, which we know is real, we currently can't, we have 4 units, we have 2 tenants, we have 1 Hurricane Ida evacuee who's month to month could leave tomorrow, and 1 unit that's vacant. So even if we throw out that 25% reduction in this cap rate approach, I'm still from 151 to 200,000 plus the land, so you're at 363 compared to 314. So it's still a much lower valuation when we take into the account what we are actually realizing in our monthly income, and to take these other properties and say this is what they got in their sales is one approach, but it's not taking the actual results of this entity. So if we can just replace this income approach with these facts, combined with the 840 market approach, if that's how the LTC wants to use in their appraisal, we average 580 instead of the 835. And again, that's why we were always comfortable with the 620 year in, year out, because the history has been the same. The investors in this property haven't made money on this property. It is a break even at best, as you can see.
I see that you only have projected numbers for August through December and not actual.
Yes, ma'am, because when I submitted this, that's where we were at. I actually have jotted down, because we just finalized the books, and the actual actually came out to be a loss of $21,808. Then you adjust out the depreciation, so we actually had a loss of $1,166 versus net income of $146. So call that a wash of break even. So it doesn't materially change the 3-year running average. And if you look, would love to be getting the numbers we had in 2019. We actually had movie crews when New Orleans was actually doing a lot more production, and we had some short-term rentals through a movie production. So we got above market rates, but those have dried up, and we are now searching for a long-term tenant that we just cannot find. We have a property manager who is out there looking. We have ads that run. So we're not trying to break even, but as you can see, the results show, and that is again why I come back to the capitalization approach rather than the GRM approach, because we have the data and we are showing our actual results. So if we just move that into Mr. Bolton's calculation, I'm not asking for 314,000, but the market approach combined with this capitalization income approach, we come out to 577. And again, I was okay with taking the 620 because it's been reasonable these years as our results are consistent.
Mr. Alvarez, do you have something you want to say, or?
Just that the market value is based on the principle of change, that properties change on a daily basis based on the 4 economic factors, government, social, economic, that the capitalization method employed by the taxpayer, we feel that shouldn't be considered in the discussion because it's not, or it has improper expenses added to it, and with this income valuation so different from any other value attributed to this property, sales comparison approach employed by the tax commission's appraisal, the income approach employed by the tax commission's appraisal, we don't feel that the $314,000 value based on the income the taxpayer provided, which we have not been able to rebuff because we did not receive the documentation. I didn't receive the documentation. We don't feel that it should be put into the situation. And there's been instances where property owners have under-rented property, and then their income value is a lot less than the sales comparison approach, but that's based on their actual, but that's usually based on a choice. If you're gonna use, the actual income or capitalization, net operating income, normally you apply a market rent. If the actual income is so off from, with anything else that's being attributed in the neighborhood.
And the income calculation I did, it's the 6,300 a month is even above what we were actually doing when Mr. Baldwin came out. So I do believe that we are taking into account a full market rate. This is a building that is in average condition. It used to be listed as good, and then Mr. Baldwin came out, walked through, and it has been downgraded to average. This is not something, you would have to put the amount of money to put into this building to be able to get these market rents that he is mentioning that we should be able to apply. And look, just because I put in property taxes for $9,000 a year, I can quickly do the math and adjust that number to show you that it still does not get us to 835.
If you take the depreciation out and the property taxes out and use your capitalization rate that you used at 6%, you're at about $715,000.
715,000.
And that was me just doing some quick calculations, and that's assuming that you're starting off with the correct amount of rental income. So I'm not real sure your argument is holding water completely there. And then you have, the management services. I'm not, where do those numbers come from?
Those are actually billed amounts that cover the property manager. I mean, these are actually
an independent
paid.
third party?
It is an independent, yes. So that is actual payments out the door to manage the property, handle the vendors for repair and maintenance, to run the listings, to all things that encompass that role. So that's not an accrual or anything, that is actual.
You have, vacancy of 25%, is that based on just 4 units and taking 25%?
It's based on, the history of those 4 units and what we have seen and what we are currently dealing with and what we've had, especially during COVID. But
So you're counting 1 unit as 25%, but is that?
it's not exactly like 1 unit is 25% in the sense we're looking at the trends of what we have actually had in tenants, and they calculated that it roughly works to about one unit at a time that we are not able to rent out, but it is kind of an average of over the 3 years of how many units at a time we are able to actually have leases on.
It says on your report, vacancy is assumed at 25%.
For 2022, that's why, because we're trying to.
Okay, let's just as okay. Well, I mean, it seems to me you ought to be able to calculate, if you're gonna use your actual incomes, your potential gross income, it seems to me you should be able to calculate what your vacancy actually is.
And we can, if I can look at this past year, I can tell you that we had, since April 1st, we haven't had anybody in one of the units. June 1st, we haven't had anybody. And then since October, we've had the Hurricane Ida evacuee. So if I calculate the 48 total months and back out all of those months that we weren't, I can do that quickly to get to the 25%. And what I'm saying is, even if we ignore that 25%, and we take the full 100, which we know is not, but let's say we take the full 100, that we get to 200,000 as the after you apply the cap rate to it instead of 151,000. Once you apply the operating expenses. Again, if I adjust out, I'd have to tweak the mean.
So what you're telling us is that if you were to put this property up for sale, our staff appraisal of $840,000 strictly based upon a market approach, that's way more than what you would ask for the property?
What I'm saying is, unfortunately, they're not going to be selling this property, and I get that. I see where you're coming from on that. But if I showed you these financials and said, here's a fourplex that you would have to spend $650,000 or $835,000, and knowing the results that I'm showing you that are actual, I don't know who's going to jump to that. And if you try to convert it to a single home, let's say you're going to put over $1 million into this, it is an average rundown condition. I can find a house in the Garden District for $2 million that is a much better location with probably a pool. So what I'm saying is there's a lot of work to be done. So yes, when you say it like that, someone come in and value at this, but when you look at the actual results, I don't know anybody who's going to make a $650,000 investment or $850,000 investment to break even. And we're not even talking about the mortgage we might have. I mean, this is strictly on the cash flow side. And so it brings that back into, it's not this great investment, even though this 600,000 might appear low. But what the numbers show in this income approach factored in is that it is reasonable for what the current results are showing.
What is the pleasure of the commission? You all want to take this under advisement and take a closer look at it, or what's our pleasure? No, we don't know, which means we probably ought to take it under advisement.
Yeah, I would, if I'm in line, I would, make sure it gets documented. I would move on, docket number 21222174-002, that would be taken under advisement.
All right, we have a motion to take this appeal under advisement. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion is adopted. Thank you, and we'll take a closer look at it and issue a decision
Is
in the
there
near
anything
future.
that I need to do, or
No,
what do I do
no.
at this point? Just wait to hear from you all?
Wait to hear back from us.
So no recalculating with the property tax or anything like that?
We're capable of that. All right,
just
thank you.
wanted to-
Thank you for coming.
Didn't mean to insult you there. All right, thank you all.
Thank you. We'll now take up the appeal of Mount Olivet, Inc. versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 21-22173-020. Okay. All right, you just state your name for the record so we have it, and go ahead and tell us about the property.
Sure, my name is Matthew Quebeca. And a couple years ago, I was here for pretty much the same valuation issue. The valuation issue at hand is the unsold crypt inventory at the location. Kind of taking back to the tax appeal from 2019, the final market value was set at $6,227,100. We had 2695 unsold crypts at the time, which that equates to about $23.11 per unsold crypt. For simplicity's sake, we pretty much carried on that methodology to the current unsold inventory of 1,653. We multiplied that times 2311 per crypt, which would indicate a value of $3.82 million.
So you're asking us to take the previous value that we had, and at the time you had 2,695 unsold crypts, which is a value of $2,311 per crypt.
Correct.
And then now you have 1,653 unsold, and times the same 2311 to come up with the 3.88 million. Is that,
Yes,
am I
sir.
correct in my
Yes, sir.
understanding?
Yes, sir. We tried to keep it as simple as possible
Yeah,
this
well,
year. Just updated the current unsold
Sure.
inventory and applied
Okay.
the same rate to it.
All right, let's see what the assessor's office has to say. Sure, go ahead.
The actual, market value increase, you know, asking more for space for this?
I did not review the actual pricing of each crypt. We agreed with the methodology that was set forth 2 years ago and just updated the unsold inventory and applied the cost figure to that.
I think that's a value from 2 years ago. I think it's the value for 2020. If I'm not mistaken, it's a,
Correct.
appeal was filed in 2019. Orleans Parish should be January 1, 2020.
Correct.
So, anyway. All right, Mr. Alvarez, let's hear from you.
Good morning, Commissioners. As I spoke to the taxpayer outside before the hearing, we received no documentation from the taxpayer to support any of his arguments. We do not disagree that the mausoleum has sold crypts, and there's fewer crypts than there were the last time we went through this. However, we cannot substantiate the actual number. We don't have a Lat 5 on record as far as the number of crypts in their inventory. When I looked at modria.com, which is what taxpayers use to file with the Board of Review, there was no documentation provided to determine the number of crypts. So I can't substantiate it. But if the number of crypts are fewer, we have no problem addressing the market value based on the actual number of crypts. I just can't substantiate it.
Well, the gentleman is testifying under oath, which would be perjury if he's not telling the truth, that there were now, as of the first of last year, 1,653 unsold spaces.
Gotcha. And while he was testifying, I did the math on that, using the average price of $20.40 per crypt, comes out with the 88 niches, comes out to a value of $3,386,700 for the improvement, plus the undisputed land of $733,100, which would come to a total fair market value of $4,119,800, which is very similar to what the Board of Review ruled. I was not present for the hearing, so I'm not sure where they came up with that $4.5 million.
I think they probably used the 2311.
Okay.
You just used the different, if you used the lower value.
Could very well be the case. Like I said, I wasn't present for that hearing, so I can't definitively say how they got the number, but if we use the
Maybe we
1653,
can hear that from the taxpayer.
Yeah.
You know, verify that, so you're saying then.
if that number is correct,
You would be
then
in agreement with.
4.1 million would be the value for the property based on 1653 crypts and 88 niches. But I just wanted to put it on the record that we received no documentation from the taxpayer, so I can't substantiate it other than his sworn testimony.
Is this all the, to the taxpayer? Is this everything that's available for sale?
Yes. Yes, sir. Total inventory.
Total inventory? Okay. Because, I mean, when I take your numbers, take the value that we did have previously, divide that by the number of unsold spaces from before, I come up with $2,311 rounded, actually $2,310.61.
Correct, rounded.
$2,310, $2,311. I'm curious, Mr. Alvarez, how did you come up with your number? Your number's different.
Yes, sir. I was just using the average rate in the Mr. Lott's appraisal from the last time we did it.
So Mr. Rebecca, you're okay then with the board review value?
Actually, this board will review the same information as submitted to them as well to the assessor. What we saw in the board review is that they essentially follow the same mathematical formula, if you will, but they in turn added back in the undisputed land value of 733, essentially double assessment by that. So we're just asking the 4.5 be reduced by that land value, and that puts us to the 3 times.
So you're asking for a value of, you're asking for a total value of $3,820,100 based upon $733,100 on the land, and the difference, which, if I calculated it correctly, $87,000 on the improvements.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Ms. Labat, we have your appraisal from last time. I don't know if you made any changes to it, but if you did, tell us about it. Otherwise, tell us about the appraisal.
I did not make any changes. I just allowed you all to, make that determination. So using Marshall and Swift, numbers, I did not change the appraisal, so I used the same inventory that was provided in 2020 with a, value of $2,040 per available grip and $166 per available niche, for a total fair market value of $6,598,100, with $733,100 attributed to land and $5,865,000 attributed to the improvements.
All right, again, the appraisal that we had from 2 years ago, I'm trying to flip around too many pages here. We've got an accounting for crypts and the niches. Is that part of the 2,695 unsold spaces? That includes both the crypt and the niche, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you didn't break it out, you just lumped it all together?
We just try to keep it simple.
Okay. Well, I guess the question to the commissioners is, are we comfortable with mathematics? I mean, it seems reasonable.
But if I understand the assessor, well, if you're okay with the math, actually, you have a less value per unit. If you could verify that is the actual number, and I think Chair was correct, the gentleman on the road. I would think that.
We're fine with that, sir.
So is it, the assessor's office asking for a particular value, or ultimately, what's the position of the assessor's office on the appeal?
I'm fine with the board review's value, I'm fine with the recalculated value using the 1653, for the 4.1 million. They're all roughly in the same space, it's just, I think, a different number of crypts. So,
I don't think it's 4.1 million, I think we're like at 3,819,000.
Yeah.
well, the math that I got is, 1653 crypts times the rate that was in, Mr. Buff's appraisal, comes out to 3,386,700. Then you add the land in, it's 733,100, for a total fair market value of 4,118,800. We disagree with the 3.8 because they don't think that the board review double dipped on the land. That's where disagreement is arising.
Well, if you take the total value divided by the number of crypts and niches in January 2020, well, I'm sorry, from 1/1/19, that's 2,695. You divide that into the commission's value from 2 years ago, you come up with a value of $2,311 per crypt and niche. You take that number and multiply it by the number that were available for sale as of January 1st of last year, 1,653 unsold spaces times 2311, you get a total fair market value of $3,820,083. That includes the land.
Well, no, that's the cost approach value. 5 million is not the land value. And 5 million, and this, what Bob calculated was for the improvements only, if you're using the cost approach.
I'm looking at our staff appraisal, which comes up with a final value that we adopted of $6,227,100, I believe. $6,227,100. If you divide that whole number by the total number of CRIPs that were available as of 1/1/19. Okay, so it's the same time frame, it appears. You come up with a value of $2,311. That includes the land. If you take the total value and divide it by a number, that includes land and building. So you don't add the land back in because the land's already in that number.
Sure, I understand. I'm just using the methodology from the appraisal and not using the, valuing the total number of CRIPs by the total value of the tax commission rule on that, because there is a set number of niches that does sell for less than CRIP. So I'm just taking the average sale price of 2040 times the 1653. That's where I'm getting my number from. And that's the number that we feel comfortable with, it's the 4.1. We're not in agreement with the 3.8. So if you take 1653 times the 2040 in the report, that's 3.3 million, or $3,386,700 when you add in the $14,000 for the niches. Then you add the land into that, because that's only the cost approach. And our final number that we're comfortable with is 4.1 million. So 4,100,000. It's $4,119,800.
What's the breakdown?
3,386,700 for the building.
3 million.
386,700. And then 733,100 for the land.
Okay.
And you use the actual appraisal.
Yes, sir.
There was a difference, I think, between our appraisal and our actual ruling.
Yes. I believe there's 2868 in the appraisal, and I think there was 26 in the actual ruling because the appraisal was done after, I think, some of the CRIPs were sold.
Russell, what was your total value?
4,100,000.
119,800.
Yeah. 4,100,000.
That just be double checking that.
Sorry about that.
That's
Cleared my calculator.
Well, it seems to me we should be going off of our decision from last time and do the math. That's how the numbers come out. And this total number of units that you have here, that includes everything that's for sale. The CRIPs and the niches, it's everything.
Correct. I think there was only like 10 niches.
I'm sorry, you got talking to Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think there was like 10 niches that were available, but again, we just lumped everything together because that's how we used.
So you just
what
added,
was done 2 years ago.
okay. Hmm. Well, the math, I mean, again, position of the commission, but the math works out if you prorate everything based on the testimony that we have. Is that something the commission is interested in doing, or,
Yes, I think so.
I mean, we'll come up with a total value of $3,820,100 is what I have.
And it's the 1653 times the 2,000.
Yeah, it's 2311 times the 1653, which is 3,820,000. I rounded it to $100. So, you want, someone want to make the motion? You want me to make the motion? Or?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move on the docket number 2122173-020 that the total value be set at $3,820,100 with the improvements, with the land being set at $733,100 and the improvements is, make sure my calculation is right, $3,086,000.
Got 87,000.
87,000, there we go. So to repeat, land value at $733,100, improvements being set at $3,087,000.
And for a total value
A
of,
total value of $3,820,100.
is any objection to the, to that motion? There being no objection to that motion, the motion stands adopted. So we got a little minor dollar difference from what you asked, but I don't think it's significant. Yeah.
Not a problem. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Our next appeal is the appeal of Kenneth J. Capone versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 21-22174-004. If you just give us one moment. All right, Mr. Capone, you come to the microphone and tell us about your, tell us about the appeal.
Okay, this is actually a repeat appeal for the same issue. I own 3 parcels of land on Magazine Street, and they're contiguous, 2029, 2031, and 2033 Magazine Street. The buildings are constructed such.
Okay, hold on one moment. We have an appeal here for 2031 Magazine Street?
Yes, sir, that's the appeal.
Okay, all right, and.
It
it's
doesn't
land-
involve
it's
20.
It's land only, there's no building on it?
Exactly.
Okay,
The building is constructed such that it's a U shape, and the buildings are on the parcel 2033 and 2029. The 2031 parcel is an entrance to the rear of the 2 buildings. There's a small piece of the ground floor of 2033 that protrudes into that parcel 2031, but it's included in the square footage of the other building at 2033.
okay.
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, and so the appeal is to remove the building on 2031, which does not exist.
we're really just talking about a little small.
It's
sliver of land.
16 feet wide, and really it's a patio between 2029 building and 2033 building. It's an entrance for the rear apartments.
And we did that the last time
I had done it before.
right,
I've been unsuccessful in getting it permanently adjusted.
right, okay. All right, well, let's see what the assessor's office has to say. If we need to get you back or you need to come back, just say so.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
this
mean,
is,
does the assessor's office, don't let the gentleman leave. Don't let him leave. Okay, he can stay in here. And the assessor's office dispute that there's no building on the property?
so technically there's a building on it, but this is a small strip of land. Records show that it's 16 by 106 feet. So we're not disputing the taxpayer's claim to roll the value forward to the last year's value to this year. We just weren't able to get this done before the hearing took place.
Okay. So the assessor's office and the taxpayer are both in agreement for a value of $59,400 land only.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Capone, would you come to the microphone real quick? So you're in agreement with the assessor's office, land only, $59,400
Yes, sir.
for value? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. All right. All right, give me one moment. All right, we have an agreement between the assessor and the taxpayer for a value of $59,400. Do we have a motion, or?
I
would you all-
make a motion.
Please do.
Mr. Chairman, I move in the matter of docket number 21-22-174-004, we set the fair market value agreed upon between the parties, land $59,400, no value for improvements, for a fair market value total of $59,400.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Wood, Commissioner Wood, to value the property at $59,400, land only. Is there any objection to that motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. All right, Mr. Capone, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll now take up the appeal of Edwin A. Ellinghausen III versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 21-22176-004. And just give us one moment. All right, Mr. Ellinghausen, if you go ahead to the microphone and tell us about the property.
Sir, do you want me to keep my mask on?
Yeah, please, if you don't mind. I don't want to get the people across the street mad at us.
I completely understand. Thank you.
Sure.
From a procedural standpoint, I kindly filed exhibits on January 14th, copies to Mr. Alvarez and Ms. Collins, and also to the Orleans Parish Assessor's Office. However, I've never received any exhibits from the Orleans Tax Assessor's Office, which would be on February 1st, and I object to any such exhibit.
We haven't received them either.
This appeal is virtually identical to an appeal involving the same property filed by the Orleans Parish Tax Assessor for the year 2021, bearing LPC docket number 20-22176-315.
In that instance, I was the appellee. Here, somewhat incredibly, I am the appellant. I say somewhat incredibly because the facts of this appeal are virtually identical to the facts presented in that appeal. The appeal for the 2021 assessment was dismissed when an objection to the timeliness of the appeal made by the appellee was sustained. The notice of the 2022 tax assessment for this property is dated July 2, 2021. The values reflected in that notice are identical to the values reflected in the assessor's July 17, 2020 notice of assessment for 2021. The total assessment for both years was $651,600, an increase in the building assessment of 98.5% from 2020. The land assessment has remained constant since at least 2020. The building assessment was increased from $271,800 to $539,400. In August 2020, I met with a certified appraiser, Mr. James Makita, who's employed by the Orleans Parish Tax Assessor's Office. He recommended a total assessment of $483,000 in response to my request for an assessment of $412,200. That figure was rejected by the assessor. An appeal to the Board of Review was finally submitted. In September 2020, the BOR conducted a hearing. The BOR slightly increased the recommendation of the assessor's appraiser from $483,000 to $485,000. The tax assessor appealed, as I've discussed earlier. In August 2021, when I got the notice from July, I chose to bypass the tax assessor's office completely and appealed directly to the Board of Review. Nothing of substance had changed with this property between 2020 and 2021, with the exception that a flat roof had been repaired in December 2020, but on the other hand, there was additional roof damage to another section of the roof, which was at that time currently under a work order, which had not been started before Hurricane Ida hit. The basis of my objection to the unreasonable increase sought by the Orleans Parish Tax Assessor's Office in both 2020 and 2021 for the respective years of 2021 and 2022 is the interior of this building. And that's what it's been about all along. Numerous photographs were submitted to the tax assessor, the Board of Review, and the Tax Commission. They are all part of my timely submission, both for the 2021 appeal and the 2022 appeal. Mr. Makita, upon review of the photos in August 2020, told me he agreed that a reduction was warranted. Nothing of any significance has been done to the interior of this house since my wife and I purchased it in August 1994. The exterior was painted with repairs to the weatherboards in 2017. In viewing the interior of 2129 Palmer Avenue, one can quickly ascertain that no significant renovations have been made since circa 1970. The BOR hearing proceeded in September 2021. Mr. Spivey, Scott Spivey, chaired the hearing. Incredibly, the BOR adopted the position of the assessor for the 2022 assessment, despite rejecting the tax assessor's same position on almost identical facts in 2020 for the 2021 assessment. This appeal has followed. And Mr. Paul Bennett, Tax Commission appraiser, wrote a report dated April 9, 2021 for the Tax Commission. Despite the fact that the report states that Mr. Bennett communicated with me, he did not. He submitted 3 comparables to support his opinion that the OPTA had correctly assessed the property. Unfortunately, he submitted 3 incomplete MLS listings, failing to attach the interior photos of any of the 3 properties, which he relied upon to justify his conclusion. I submitted the interior shots in exhibits 21, 22, and 23 of my submission of each of these homes. The difference in these photos and the photos of the interior of 2021 Palmer Avenue, consisting of over 30 photos, is stark. I spoke via telephone with Mr. Bennett on December 4th, 2021. He had initially called me. In a conversation that lasted almost an hour, I carefully and clearly explained to him my position. On multiple occasions during the course of the conversation, I invited him to come view the interior of the house. He neither accepted nor declined, but told me he was based in North Louisiana, so I was fairly certain he wasn't coming to New Orleans. He invited me to send documentation. I became ill for about 2 weeks thereafter, then Christmas happened. His report is dated December 16th, 2021, but I did send him additional information via text, which was the only way I had to contact and communicate with him on January 11th, 2022. So, I have not yet heard back from him. Mr. Bennett's December 2021 report is virtually identical to his April 2021 report. I believe he changed one sentence. He did not address the disparity in the comparables he presented. While the report says that the appraiser reserves the right to reevaluate and observe the property before the hearing, it is apparent that he has chosen not to do so since he's had well over a month to do that. Hurricane Ida struck, causing more damage. That damage was the subject of another submission and hearing with the DOR. It was at this time that Mr. Spivey, after being reminded by me that the DOR had changed positions between 2020 and 21, remarked, "I made a mess of that." I rejected the assessor's office a compromise for Hurricane Ida damage consisting of a 9.8% reduction in the 2022 assessment because had I done so, this appeal would have terminated. The fact of the matter is that the Hurricane Ida reduction suggested by the assessor is very close to the percentage that I had suggested, and I would accept a 9.8% reduction on the final 2022 number based on Hurricane
All right, Mr. Ellenhouse, can you tell us what is the value that you're requesting?
I was requesting a value before the Hurricane Ida damage of $412,200.
And what is the basis for that?
The basis is that prior to that time, it was $385,000.
What was 385,000?
The value of the property for the assessment for 2020, tax year 2020. So it went up, at least the proposed assessment for 2021, went up from 385,000 to 651,000. And I met with Mr. Makita, suggested 412,200. He eventually told me that he had recommended 483,000, which was rejected by the assessor. The Board of Review came up with 485,000. I did not cross appeal in 2021. You know, I was somewhat shocked that the Orleans Parish Tax Assessor had appealed, but that appeal was dismissed because it wasn't timely filed.
All right, so you're requesting a value of 412,000, how much?
200.
200?
But you had agreed at the 483, and that was representative from the assessor's office.
What happened was, when I met with Mr. Makita, I believe on August 12th, they had about 9 or 10 days to get back to me. And as we came to the deadline, I kept sending him emails saying, "Hey, there's a deadline here, what should I do?" And he said, I suggest that you appeal to the BOR because I haven't heard anything from the tax assessor. So it wasn't until later that I found out that Assessor Williams wanted to keep the 651, the BOR suggested 483. I did not appeal that. So,
Here's the problem. We're trying to determine fair market value.
yes,
What exchanges you had or didn't have with the assessor's office, or with the Board of Review for that matter. Unless we had some actual calculation or something from those agencies, we have to look at our own independent analysis.
yes.
And, based on that analysis, our staff appraisal, and we'll hear from Mr. Bennett in a few moments, the value is $641,000.
Well,
And what I'm struggling for is he's valued the property in average condition, which which I'm assuming is a proper characterization of the property. What is it that, why is that wrong? I mean, that's the, and I don't see anything, I'm not saying, I mean, based on everything I see and the commission has before it, the best information we have as to value is our staff appraisal. And, because we just don't have anything else to justify a lower value.
Well, what you have is the photos that I have sent, both of my own property, the interior of the property, and also the photos of the interior of the comparables that were used by Mr. Bennett. I have asked Mr. Bennett to come view my home. I'm happy to allow him to come in and view that, because as you know, the value of a property is not just the exterior. It also is the interior. And these houses that are selling for these amounts have very nice interiors. I would love to have a very nice interior, but right after we bought that house, 5 kids were born in quick succession. And, you know, that's where I am today. And I mean, you know, who knows what I could sell the property for. But if people come in and take a look at in the condition that it's in with that circa 1970s kitchen, and the same thing with the bathroom, and damage to the bedrooms dating back to Hurricane Katrina, where the roof failed.
You actually have open ceilings in some areas?
No, they're not open ceilings, but it's water damage.
But there's no, some of the photos show no ceiling, like Exhibit 13-2.
Oh, well, there is, I'd have to look at that one, but there is, it's the small 150 square foot room off of our bedroom, which was damaged in Hurricane Ida. But at that time, before that time, the drop ceiling had already begun to go away. So you did have, you know, you had something above. It was a flattish type roof, probably at about 20-degree angle. But that's the only one that would have been in that situation. Now, since that time, that room has been totally gutted, and it's gutted right now because of waiting on an electrician and this, that, and the other.
Did
All right.
Mr. Bennett have access to the interior? I know the photos that you sent. Were they included in the average determination by Mr. Bennett?
We'll have to ask Mr. Bennett that.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Well, I did send them to him on January 11th, 2022.
Mr. Bennett, did you have access to the photos that the taxpayer has presented to us? And I'm trying to, of the interior, the condition of the interior. And was that included in your average condition rating?
The photos were not. The appraisal was completed on December 8th. The photos were sent on January 11th. However, with the our safety system, with the average condition rating based upon conversation with taxpayers, saying that there is no material change since the prior year.
Have you, I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett, have you looked at the photographs since you received?
In my opinion, the photographs, although both the taxpayer has a on average condition rating for both what I could find information-wise, plus what the information for the telephone, I would honestly think that the condition rating would be slightly lower than that.
All right, so what would that be? What would that number be?
I would be thinking average fair is a 5% reduction. I mean, it's a lot of the house still haven't been really planning with the water staining, which is kind of evidence from water being, minor or whatever.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is after reviewing the photos, you would consider lowering your value from $641,000 by 5%, 8%, 10%?
Yeah, well, if you took an additional 5% from each condition, it would be essentially just a gross 5%. That would drop it to about 609,000.
And that's a 5% reduction? Well, I mean, how did you determine the 609?
Let's say 4,800.
Yeah, if you take 5% off, it's 608,950.
Yeah, it's at 609,000.
Okay. Sure. You want? I'm sorry. Right, right. Well, all those adjustments are made to the sales price, and that, which includes the land. We don't make it, we're not making adjustments, based upon, separating the land out. So the 641,000, you would be comfortable saying, a value of 609,000, land and building. The taxpayer and the assessor's office are having a chat, so we're gonna wait for them to finish.
I have, just been given an offer by Mr. Alvarez,
Okay,
and I'm considering it. I apologize. The only other thing I would say about Mr. Bennett is, when we did speak, and we had a very nice conversation, he had never looked at the photos I had sent for 2021 nor 2022 until recently. And as I said, he had the ability to send in a revised report or to come down to New Orleans.
well, we've been discussing that with him and how to do this. Do you all have an agreement on what you want to do?
Are y'all agreeing on the board of review value? Because I think that's
The board of review value is the lowest value we
the
have.
value you're gonna get.
Yeah.
Okay, I talked to the taxpayer, we're coming up to a value using Mr. Bennett's appraisal, making an adjustment for condition.
Okay,
Then we're taking our IDA adjustment that we offered, so our IDA adjustment total value for the property would be $112,200 for the land, $401,900 for the building, for a total fair market value of $514,100. That includes IDA, the IDA reduction, so it's, if there's another appeal for IDA for Mr. Ellinghouse, he will withdraw that appeal.
okay, so this would, in effect, it would handle both appeals.
Yes. Now, what I need for Mr. Alvarez to say is what the percentage reduction is for the Hurricane Ida.
It was a 5% reduction.
That's all I need him to say, so that's on the record.
Okay, all right, so we have an agreement, Mr. Alvarez, correct me if I say something wrong. We have an agreement between the assessor's office and the taxpayer for a land value of $112,200, an improvement value of $401,900, for a total value of $514,100.
Yes, sir.
And by doing this, Mr. Ellinghausen, you are withdrawing your IDA appeal.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, so that is going to be, that'll be withdrawn. Okay, all right. I think that's the information that we need. Okay. Commissioners, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make the motion.
Please do.
I would move on docket 21-22176-004, based on the agreement between the taxpayer and the assessor's office, that the fair market value be set land at $112,200, improvement value $401,900, or a total fair market value of $514,100.
All right, we have a motion. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. And with regard to Mr. Ellinghausen's IDA appeal, that appeal has been dismissed by Mr. Ellinghausen this morning. Okay. All right, well, thank you very much for coming. Take care. Is there something that was filed, or was it filed? So this was timely filed? Okay. All right. So my understanding is the assessor's office, taxpayer, y'all have not been able to work this out? All right, Mr. Kelo, have you been sworn in as a witness? Okay. All right, the appeal of Clark Garage LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review. Docket number 21-22171-013. All right.
Good morning, Commission members. Appreciate the time. It's good to see some of you I haven't met before. My name is Carl Kehoe, representing the owner. The subject of this first appeal is the Clark Garage LLC. It's a 568 space South Park parking garage located in the CBD of New Orleans. And the assessor's office has an incorrect space count of 602. The correct space count is 568, as attested to by the ownership, and that's part of our exhibits. It's item 5 in our exhibit listing. And our request before you today is recognition of the economic contraction caused by COVID-19. I know we're all well aware that the proclamations that Governor John Bel Edwards has issued on March 16th. This proclamation ordered the temporary closure of certain businesses and restricted gatherings of no more than 50 people, prohibited gatherings of more than 50 people. It was further restricted to gatherings of no more than 10 individuals in a general stay-at-home order on his March 22nd proclamation. And the city's festival season was canceled. Jazz Fest, French Quarter Fest, Satchmo Fest, eventually in June. By that time, all of the city's conventions were also canceled in 2020. By June 2020, about half of the city's CBD and French Quarter hotels were closed. Some of them still remain closed today. And I think it's safe to say behind the hospitality industry, the hardest hit of the downtown businesses had to be these parking facilities. The subject's revenue declined 46% from 2019 to 2020, as evidenced by the IRS tax returns that have been submitted as part of item 7 of our exhibits. We're requesting on this basis that the tax commission establish a value of $5.5 million in recognition of the decline in revenues of the subject and based on the subject's year-end 2020 income. This 5.5 incidentally is also the value rendered by the Board of Review last year. I don't think the tax commission's appraisal report takes into account this change in economics that was caused by COVID-19. Happy to address any questions that you all might have.
Where did you get the discount rate from?
My discount rate was taken from the realtyrates.com. That's exhibit 8 in our report. I used the average of the CBD office. It's done by the band of investment technique, and they come up with the averages was 8.89.
You said that's for offices?
This is for offices. Realtyrates.com, yes, sir, did not have parking garages as a separate category.
Okay, so how can we justify using a cap rate or discount rate for offices for a parking garage?
Yeah, I know the tax commission's appraisal did the same thing. They used an office designation. I think the parking garages service, the office buildings downtown as well as some of the, just regular foot traffic and other businesses that go down there. Realtyrates.com had other classifications as medical office buildings. They have apartment rates. They did not have a separate category. So I thought the office was the best category to use.
And this is based on actual income, is that correct?
Yes, this is based on the income for 2020. They have their IRS tax returns. Form 1120S has been submitted. And with that, the detail I've gotten is their the bookkeeper's trial balance, which is the basis for that. And I've excluded ineligible expenses such as rent, debt, depreciation, interest, property taxes. You'll see item 7 is our reconciliation of that income. The only items I have added to that is I added a 3% management fee and also a 2% reserve for replacement. Also noted in there in one of my footnotes is that they did not have liability insurance or other insurance in their expenses on their IRS return. My understanding is that they have an insurance policy for all their facilities and they didn't allocate it to this. So the expenses may be somewhat understated.
Do they actually have reserves set up?
Not on their income statement, no. No, sir.
So, but you're asking us to include it anyway.
I did. I put a 2% reserve for replacement as some kind of just industry standard reserve for long-lived items.
And management fee at 3%?
Yes, sir. Those are the only items I've added to that.
And the appeal, 2020 appeal was withdrawn, is that correct? Was there an agreement with the assessor's office? It was withdrawn.
This is our first year representing these owners, so I'm unfamiliar with past years.
And was this information provided to our appraiser? This information we have here?
Yeah, I know. Yes, it was. The assessors, the appraisal report, I know notes in here that we did not provide any information to the tax commission appraiser. I think it was a timing issue. We have provided the IRS tax returns and the reconciliation as well as the trial balance.
And when were these exhibits filed? Do you know the date?
Our date of service, we emailed them on January 14th. to both the tax commission and the assessor's office.
And does it say, yeah, when they were received?
I don't have,
No, you mailed it on January 14th.
I emailed it, yes, sir.
Email.
Yes, sir.
Oh, email, okay. All right. Do we have any questions? All right, let's hear from the assessor's office.
Commissioners, so I can't substantiate as far as the exhibits. Mr. Kehoe has said that he emailed two other individuals in their office. I don't personally have them, so I can't dispute them. I'm not stating that he did not, I just don't have them in my possession. They went to me. The COVID reduction that was applied to the for parking garages for 2021 was 20% roughly. And then for 2022, there was an uptick in visitation in New Orleans and businesses were coming back. So we made a COVID reduction for 2021 of 15% on the buildings.
Excuse me, the 20% was in what year?
21.
In 21?
Yes, sir.
And the 15%?
It's for 22.
For 22.
Um,
And that's what we're looking at here, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We're looking at
So
2022.
the $7,338,900 for value, that includes a 15% reduction for COVID?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if I back it up, it'll be some number slightly larger.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, but how does that get to the value? I mean, the underlying value is what we're looking at.
Underlying value is based on a pro forma income approach to value that was done for the parking garage, performed by one of the appraisers in our office.
Okay, we don't have that.
We don't have that. I did not submit any of the documentation to the commission. We are actually in agreement with the tax commission's appraisal, even though.
Well, it's not gonna have any COVID
Yes, sir.
adjustment in there.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So we would reduce, so we would be able to reduce the $7,500,000 by 15%?
Yes, sir.
What you're saying?
Yes,
Well,
sir.
the improvement portion of it, huh?
The improvement portion. Yes, sir.
Right. And I don't know what that
Russell,
number is.
did you hear about did you pay attention when we talked about the discrepancy in the number of spots?
It did. I think that was part of the reason why this was withdrawn last year, because they had what was provided to the assessor's office from the old client was different than what is actually advertised for sale. I mean, not for sale, but for use. So what we have is different from what they said they had, which is different from what they advertised that they have. So there's a whole bunch of different numbers that were floating out there.
All right, so, Mr. Alvarez, what value are you requesting? You're requesting the assessor's office value, you're requesting the, board review value?
Our office would be requesting or be happy with a building value of $4,629,400, land value of $2,053,700. For a total fair market value of $7,163,100. Oh, did I do that wrong? Oh, yeah, I'm doing, oh, okay, I got a little number here. $6,683,100. So $4,629,400 for the building, $2,053,700 for the land, total fair market value of $6,683,100.
6,000,000,
$6,600,000,
$6,683,000.
yes, sir.
$6,683,100 total. All right, Mr. Wallace, why don't you go ahead and tell us about your appraisal?
Okay, George Wallace, Louisiana Tax Commission, and I appraised the subject property, which is an updated appraisal. The land value is estimated at $2,053,700. The improvements based on, the cost of the income after they were broken down, $5,446,300, for a total value of $7,500,000. I did do a quick calculation on the income appraisal applied to, the corrected spaces at 568. Legal agency collection all pays the same, and applying the overall cap rate, the adjusted value would be $6,997,000 for the income appraisal.
How much is that? Say it again.
$7,500,000 originally was correlated between the income and the cost. I would tend to say that it's probably more reliable to do the income appraisal. If it's adjusted for the spaces, I would estimate a total value of $7,000,000.
And the income information that you have, what was that based upon?
The income is based on the market. I have not received anything from the previous tax sale representative. Mr. Tito did forward me some information. I believe it was for 2020, and he didn't have anything for 2017 to relate to the use of our field.
I noticed in your report that you have current rates from the website and Google Map rates. And you use an average daily rate of $9, I guess. How did that play into the value? Is that where you changed the number of spaces from 602 to, was it 583? 568.
Well, I used the same data rate. I adjusted the, I just did that, a few minutes ago. The 568, well, the 650 spaces is originally reported to me, so,
It's the Clock Garage. Now, did you have a chance to look at the submission that he made to the tax commission? Because he's got an income and expense. Did you have an opportunity to come up with a value based upon the submission that he has made to the commission?
No, I did not, everything said 2020 was, outside of the parameters that we normally do for the, 1/19 evaluation. I do see in my opinion, I feel like the 11.86 cap rate is a little high for that area for parking garage. But, otherwise, I have not had a chance to go through all of the, expenses.
What kind of cap rate, how would you construct a cap rate? How would, you said you thought the cap rate was high. How would you, what kind of cap rate would you use? Okay. What's the effective tax rate? What is the effective tax rate? Okay. Which would be an overall cap rate of what? 9.6? How much? Let me see. $9.66, you said? Okay. I come up with 9.7, but that's fine. Let's see. Okay. So that comes up with a value of approximately $6,537,000, if I did all my math correctly. I don't know if anybody else was doing that. Okay. All right. Does the commission want to go ahead and take this one under advisement, take a closer look at it? Or,
Mr. Kim, do you have any comment about the adjusted value?
No, that's what I came up with as well, when I adjust the correct space count, is at 6,997,000, which then doesn't take into account the, any kind of COVID consideration, which I think the assessor's office, speaking with Russell back there, might have had some adjustment.
So if you take the 6,997,000, strike out the land, take 15% off of the improvement value for the COVID adjustment, the assessor and the taxpayer agree with that?
You end up with 6.2 million, roughly. You know, you can.
okay, can you give me the numbers then?
So $4,204,400 for the building, $2,053,700 for the land,
2 million,
$53,700 for the land, for a total fair market value of $6,258,100.
$6,258,100.
Yes, sir.
What was
That
the
takes them into
improvement?
consideration- I'm sorry.
Could you repeat the improvement
Yeah,
again?
I'm sorry, $4,204,400 for the, building, $2,053,700 for the land. So total fair market value is $6,258,100.
And that's an agreement between the taxpayer and the assessor.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. We have an agreement between the taxpayer and the assessor. Is the commission satisfied with that? If so, do we have a motion?
I'll be glad to make a motion.
Sure.
In in the matter of docket number 2122171013, I would move that we set the fair market value as agreed upon by the parties. Land, $2,053,700. Improvement, $4,204,400, for a fair market value of $6,258,100.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Wood. Is there any objection to the motion? There being no objection to the motion stands adopted. We'll now take up the appeal of Kraus Garage LLC versus the Orleans Parish Board of Review, docket number 21-22171-011. Just give us a moment. I mean, you guys want to go talk about this, or you all settled the previous one? Would you like to do that? I mean, I'd much rather have you all in agreement, you know. So why don't we do this? Let's go ahead and we're going to skip over this one. You guys go talk, see if you can work it out. We'll continue with the rest of our docket, but nobody let me call it a day until we hear back from these folks. Okay. Nobody else? Okay. All right. So let's see. Oh, we got, yeah, Russ, I'm sorry. We're going to need you in and out on these other appeals. You want to do that? Why don't we do that? Let's do that. Let's go. If it's okay with the commissioners, let's take a brief recess. Let you folks talk about that appeal, the Kraus appeal, and we'll come back when you guys are ready. Okay? We'll take a